Oh, and if you can't hear Sherry, raise your hand.
Back in 1985, I was a beginning belly dance student living in poverty in the bohemian section of Kansas City known as Westport. Life was rough, so sometimes I went window shopping to cheer myself up. My favorite place in the world to go was the Westport Flea Market. There, I was able to find a few costume items that I could afford, including some foreign coins in silver and brass that I attached to my bras and my hat and my necklace. The very best shop in the flea market was called Bob's Bazaar Bazaar. It was a magical place full of primitive art, jewelry, and antiques from all around the world. It was owned by Bob Berdella. He was a quiet man in his mid-30s. He was a civic-minded fellow. He helped to establish a culinary program at the local community college. He headed his neighborhood crime watch. He tried to help addicts get off drugs, and he volunteered for charity fundraisers. I often went to his shop to drool over this Afghani necklace that I couldn't afford, and Bob gave me a really good deal on it. I was so touched by his generosity. And so after I bought the coins, I went to him and I asked him if he happened to have any heavy chains that I could use to make a belly dance belt with. He handed me this big wad of thick chains that were absolutely perfect for my needs. And he didn't charge me 1 cent for them. And I thought, what a great guy. I had this friend named Russ, and he had just become a silversmith, and he set up a booth inside Bob's shop where he sold rings and other items that he had made. 3 years passed, and now I was a professional belly dancer of a sort. I did singing telegrams and bellygrams for a couple of local companies. And I often wore that chain and coin belt that Bob helped me to assemble. Well, one day I was visiting my friend Margaret, and she said to me, "Sherry, did you hear that Bob Berdella was arrested for murder?" And I said, "What?" And she told me that he had been keeping this young gay guy prisoner in his home. He was tied to the bed, and Bob was drugging him, raping him, and torturing him for 4 days. And then the guy managed to escape while Bob was at work. He jumped out of a 2-story window and broke a bone in his foot. And then he hobbled over to the nearest house and banged on the door, stark naked except for a dog collar. The police came and they took him to the hospital. I further read in the papers that when they searched Bob's house, they found drugs, all kinds of torture equipment, a bloody chainsaw, a skull in the closet, a head buried in the backyard, envelopes with vertebrae and teeth in them. But the most incriminating pieces of evidence were 365 photographs that Bob had taken of his 7 victims, and a logbook that had the names of each victim written in it, detailed descriptions of all of the tortures he had done, and their responses to it. Bob denied the charges for a long time, but during the trial, he suddenly changed his plea to guilty to avoid the death penalty. He made a full confession and was quickly charged with the murders of 6 young gay men, and he was sentenced to life without parole. Now, about a week after his arrest, and just after I had read in the papers about his crimes, I was driving to a singing telegram gig. Just after I rounded a bend in the highway, I was stopped by a traffic cop. He walked up and he said, "Ma'am, do you realize that you were driving 65 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone?" I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't see the sign. I was worried about my friend. He had a booth in Bob Berdella's shop, and he's a little, I think he might be gay." And the policeman said, "Well, I can certainly understand that." And just then, the wind blew his hat off and he had to run way down the highway to fetch it. And when he came back, he said, "I'm going to let you off with just a warning." Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, that I said what I did to the officer to get out of the speeding ticket. But I meant what I said. I really was worried about Russ. And as I started to drive off, I was thinking how the sympathy that the officer showed me reminded me of the sympathy that Bob had shown me back when I was poor, despite his cruel nature. And then the realization hit me. Oh my God, there could have been a guy tied up in Bob's torture room at the very same time I was in his shop. And that thought made it all the more real to me. And it struck me what a paradox it was that I should have been treated with such kindness by a person capable of such monstrous cruelty. My friend Russ turned out to be fine, although badly shaken. He opened his own jewelry store, and he ran it successfully until he retired last year. Bob didn't fare so well. He died in prison 4 years after his arrest of a heart attack at age 43. I still belly dance, and I still have that chain and coin belt, and it will always serve as a reminder of my brush with evil with the Kansas City Butcher. Wow.